to go back, I just better not make all the totally stupid decisions that I made. But that one was not one of them.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to change everything. How we think. And we've got to spend time in the Word and spend time with godly people and let God speak to our hearts and through the Word and just to be more like Him.
Okay, since you brought up the word speak, let's look at the text. In the past and at many times and in various ways, what did God do? He spoke. How about that? People say, you can believe anything you want, you can be a part of any religion you want, and still be saved. You just need to believe and find a church that fits you. No, you can't. Why? Well, the reason why is because every religion is man's attempt to discover God. You ever notice that? This Hindu and all this, all this stuff. Christianity, or the true religion, if you want to look at it from the way my mind works, is God's bursting into man's world to tell man what He, God, is like and who He is through His Son. So basically, from my viewpoint, man is incapable of identifying or comprehending or understanding God at all. How many of you understand God? Okay. Okay. You'd what?
I'd be a little worried.
Oh, okay.
Anybody that I know that said, I understand God.
Yeah. Yeah. Patsy says she'll be a little worried if somebody. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So something had to happen, and what was that? God had to come into the world that He created for man, and how did He do that? He spoke. He's not speechless, He's not detached, and He's not involved. For years, now this is when I was younger, I thought God created the earth and then went on vacation and He's just letting time run out. What kind of idiot thinks like that? Okay, now God spoke, keep that in your focus there. Can you name the idol or the god or the heathen, the pagans, etc., that have spoken that we have a record of? Can you name 5 of the most prominent ones? Or can you name one? Can anybody name one of these gods? Pagan gods? Heathen gods, a name? Anybody got a name? What? Baal's one of them? Okay. Anybody else? There's one called Marduk. Who? Buddha? Okay, Buddha's good. I got Buddha down, yeah. I got Baal, I got Buddha, I got Hindu. I don't know who the Hindu god is. There's about 10,000 of them. Well, he was the prophet, see. Oh, yeah. I didn't put him down, but I did think about him. Okay, what did they say? What did they say, Kevin? These gods, what did they say? Anybody know? When they spoke, what did they say? Didn't say nothing, did they? Because they can't speak, can they? God spoke. And we have His Word in this book here. And then we have His Son's Word through what we call the New Testament. So He spoke, and these gods are just a bunch of dummies made by man's hands. So, this Old Testament is full of His voice, and it's recorded on the pages of the book. The Old Testament is not the wisdom of man. It's not a myth. It's not a little story. It's the voice of God. So we would do well to study the Old Testament, right? And rightly so. We've been studying Genesis now for how long? Anybody keeping a record? I'm just picking on y'all. That's it. What? 40-something chapters. Yeah, I got it. Okay. Okay. What are we bound by in this life on this planet? Two things, time and what? Space. Space? Time and space. All right, now this is kind of how it works in my brain. Just picture a box, okay? And we're all in the box. And outside the box is that other realm. This is the spiritual world where God lives. It's outside the box. We're in the box. He's outside the box. So while we're in the box, we have some really wise folks. And they give us hammers and chisels and hand grenades and dynamite and all this stuff. And they start pecking on the side of the box. And finally they blow a hole through the box, and they're going to get out into that other realm, and they're going to find nirvana. You know what nirvana is? I don't. But some of these religions, if you'll pay a little bit more, or if you'll do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, they'll let you in on a few secrets, and you're going to climb that ladder to nirvana. But eventually, you think you're going to get there. No, you're not ever going to get there, because you cannot get to God by digging out of the box. So what did God do? He sent His Son, and He got in the box with us. Does that make any sense? He had to come into our world and be like us, or He can't help us. He had to be a human, just like what we read, before He could recognize His brothers, before He could proclaim us to God. So He did something great for us, but in the context of this book, the Jewish mind can't accept that. They can't accept that Christ came. They have to have all this old system going and all this stuff. And they never got past that even today. Yeah, we have Jewish Christians today, but we got a lot of Orthodox Jews that don't believe in Jesus Christ. Okay. So where are we here? Chapter 10, verses 5, 6, and 7, Hebrews. I wrote that down, but I didn't make a point of it. Let's see what it says. Hebrews 10, 5, 6, and 7. So he says, therefore, when Christ came into the world, okay, He came into where? Our box, in our realm of time and space. He said, sacrifice and offering you did not desire, but a body. Hey, what God do? A body you prepared for me. With burnt offerings and sin offerings you were not pleased. Then I said, here I am. It is written about me in the scroll, I have come to do your will, O God. Where did I write that down? I knew I'd forget it. It's in Luke, I think. Let's go to Luke 12 right quick. Well, that's not it. I've lost it. Maybe some of y'all know where it is, but do you remember the incident where Jesus went into the tabernacle and He grabbed the scroll and He read about Himself? And then He sat down and He said, you know, I declare this to be the truth or whatever. They couldn't accept that. Remember, they got real mad. So anyway, back to the fact that God came into our world, according to chapter 10. We could not and cannot come to God on our terms or our merit. We have to meet Him on His terms, and that's through the man Jesus Christ. So these two words in the first verse of Hebrews 1, God spoke. That's the theme for the book of Hebrews, which is His Son, Jesus Christ, is greater than everything. He's greater than the prophets, the angels, Moses, Joshua, the high priest, the Levitical priest, Abraham, the tabernacle ministry, the Old Covenant, the Old Testament sacrifice, etc. So the supremacy of Jesus Christ is what this book is about. And in these last days, He is speaking to us through His Son. And who is Christ? Verse 2, the Son. In verse 2, He's the heir, the one who made the world. Verse 3, the brightness of the glory of God, the exact representation of God. He upholds the Word. He is the Word. He purged our sins. The one seated at God's right hand. Verse 4, He's better than the angels. In verse 5, He is the Son. In verse 6, He's the chief of all, and the angels worship Him. Verse 7, angels are His servants. In verse 8, He is called God, who is forever and ever. In verse 9, He's anointed above all others. In verse 10, He's the Lord of creation. In verse 12, His years will never end. And that brings us to chapter 2. Any comments on chapter 1? Anything anybody wants to say? I'll give you the floor. I'll even give you the mic. Okay. There's a lot of things happening in chapter 2. The first of 5 warnings begins in chapter 2 in verses 1 through 4. And the writer's going to speak of 3 things in chapter 2. He's going to speak about the character of Christ. He's going to speak about the certainty of judgment and the confirmation of Christ. And the character of Christ, I just basically went through that in chapter 1. That's knowing who He is by His own character makes rejection the more idiotic, and foolish makes, I didn't write that right down, the most idiotic and foolish act a person could ever commit in their life is turning your back on Christ. Jesus became God's voice, according to chapter 1 in the opening verses. And He said earlier in the Gospels, He says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And then He said, my Father and I are one. And there's many other quotations that He said who He was. Jesus was God in the world, and He came down and He entered our time and space. So to reject Jesus is to reject God, and to reject God is to reject the reason for our existence. After all, we didn't create ourselves. Because the character of Christ is so magnificent and above everything, if we reject the salvation that He offers, what hope do we have? We turn our back on Jesus Christ, we've set our own fate, hadn't we? What else can God do for us? Just because are we going to get in just like the guy in the parable of the wedding feast? He popped in there, and the king said, "Hey, how'd you get in here? You ain't wearing a wedding garment. How'd you get in?" And what was the guy? Speechless, right? And then what did he tell him? Tie him up, throw him out. There's only one way to get to God. That's through His Son, Jesus Christ. Sure.
Go backwards. You started out saying being baptized.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things, just what you just mentioned, but we're also often constant cleansing. We're always clean in God's sight. He cleanses us constantly. I'm not saying go
No.
back for a while.
No.
We're talking serious here. We have to have a constant cleansing, which is wonderful. And also, what are we told? That nobody can snatch you out of my hand. Nobody. And that ought to make you sleep like a baby every night. Nobody. Except you want to jump out of my hand, go ahead. Nobody take it.
Yeah. But now, to the constant cleansing, how was life for that Jew? Now, what did he have to do? He had to go, okay, I've stubbed my toe, I've committed a sin here, I'm in trouble, and I got to go where? To the priest. And what have I got to do? I got to do something here. Now, what does the priest got to do? Before he can make atonement for your sin, he got to make atonement for his own sin. So we will get into all of that. So this writer is trying to get to these folks' heart and say there's a better way.
Well, he took away the family business.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. And it hurt when that happened. We laugh at it, but it's serious. And what I noticed here, and that's the reason I read the first 2 chapters, is because in chapter 2, when he starts out in those first 4 verses, he's been talking about angels. And then he just jumps right straight into this. And let's read it again. He says, we must pay more careful attention, therefore, what's therefore? Therefore, to what we have heard, so that we do not drift away. Well, all of us know, and some of us may have experienced it, how easy it is to drift away. Do you have to do anything to drift away? No, you just do nothing, right? You just do nothing. And next thing you know, you just out there in your little boat. Where's the shoreline? You can't even find it anymore. It's way out there. We just drifted off. We didn't even know what was happening. And that's what he's trying to get to these. The way I see the first 4 verses of chapter 2 is, hey, are we over? I got 7:52. When are we supposed to quit? What? 8 o'clock? All right, so we got 6 minutes. Just a 2-minute warning. The way I see chapter 2 is that whoever was in this group, in my opinion, and that's what it is, it's an opinion, is that there's Jewish Christians in this group, and there's Jewish non-believers in the same group, but then there's this other group of Jewish people that, and we know these people, we've seen them all our life. I don't care where you go to worship, you're going to see this. There's folks that come. They may come with their husband. They may come with their wife. They may come just on Sunday morning. They may come on Sunday night. It doesn't matter when. But they hear the truth. They witness the truth. They see people being baptized. They understand Christianity front to back. They believe the truth. But they just can't commit to it. You ever notice that? They just can't get hooked on. So this writer is jumping in here, right here, and he's trying to push those people over the edge. They're sitting on the fence. You see what I mean? That's the way I see it. I don't know how you see it. But anyway, he's trying to get a little bit there to where he can get them over the edge and make them see, verse 3, how should we escape if we ignore such a great salvation? We're not going to escape. We can't get away if we neglect this. Now look at verse 2. For if the message spoken by angels was binding, and every violation and disobedience received its just punishment, how shall we escape? Did you know everything under the law was punishable by what? What do they do with that thing? They pick up a rock and they do it. What do they call that? Stoning. Read Leviticus sometime. If a man does this or that or whatever, take him outside the camp and stone him. Folks, that's hard to live under. Now, you mentioned constantly cleansing a while ago. Folks, being in line with Jesus Christ and loving Him and following Him and being faithful to Him, that's the best thing we can do. It don't get any better than that. Because we're constantly cleansed. These folks in this time here, man, I tell you, I saw you. Okay, we're going to get the rocks, Mark. You're down, Get in the pit. How hard was that? And yet they still clung to it and held on to that old system. And this writer's saying, get away from that. Get away from that. He says, last part of verse 3, this salvation, which was first announced by the Lord, was confirmed to us by those who heard him. But anyway, he said God also testified to it by signs, wonders, various miracles, and gifts of the Holy Spirit distributed according to his will. And we know by the way this letter was written that these people that got and heard the gospel, that accepted the gospel, they got it secondhand. They didn't know Jesus Christ personally. They came along a little bit later. So they got it secondhand like we did. But the evidences are there. You remember, I can't remember where it was, and I wrote it down, but I didn't take 30 minutes to find it. But Jesus said, if you don't believe in me, at least believe in the miracles. Now, if you saw somebody raised from the dead, would you believe? I think I would. I think I'd be kind of scared. That guy was dead, and now he's walking around. He's given them a chance, but they just can't commit. And that's sad. And we're living in a world of non-committers. That church stuff, I don't know. That's for women and children, it's just, well, it might be all right for you, but it's not. They're lost. Yeah. That drifting. Ring the bell. Ring the bell, Galen. We're done. Yes, sir.